Hey, I'm Di Gillett, and this is the Power of Women podcast. We're a platform that celebrates and showcases the strength, resilience, and achievement of women from all walks of life. In each episode, I'm going to pose questions to my guests that reveal their experience and knowledge that shapes their narrative. So if you're feeling unseen, unheard, or simply looking for inspiration, then Power of Women is a really great place to join the conversation. But before we start, are you following Power of Women on your favourite podcast platform? Please do so, because it helps us bring this content to you. Thanks so much. Joining me today is a very special guest, and full disclosure, she's also a very special friend of mine. She's a powerhouse entrepreneur, a fabulous female over 50, and as the camera will declare, a fabulous looking female over 50. And she runs a property styling business, and during the COVID years, we actually had a business together for a brief period. My guest today is Kim Hallis. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, Di, for such a lovely introduction.
Thank you. I'm going to read just a bit of a backstory bio, if I could, just to give us the backstory of what we're going to talk to. So you grew up in the UK.
Yep.
You studied pharmacy and worked in the UK as a pharmacist in the family business. You then moved as a young bride to Australia, had 2 children, and worked as a pharmacist in Melbourne for 10 years, which I did not realise. Mm-hmm. So there you go. You then embarked on your entrepreneurial journey, first launching the highly successful retail homewares business, Create Expectations, before launching in 1997 what has evolved into today as Create Collective, which is a highly successful Melbourne-based company providing property styling services, interior design, and volume furniture packages. Create Collective was born out of the need to provide high-end luxury property styling to clients looking to add value and vision to selling their property. Brilliant. Mm-hmm. Partnering with some of the most premium real estate agencies in Melbourne, Create Collective has forged a name for bringing spaces to life and adding significant value. Since then, the company has grown in stature and skill, expanding its reach to partner with developers, investors, and the design community. I'm exhausted reading this. Not only are you a business success story, but so are your 2 children. Your daughter Leah works with Create Collective and is a well-established interior designer in her own right.
She is.
And your son Tristan has taken the global music scene by storm and is the London Storm, not by store, caught on retail, and is the London-based house music producer, DJ Boring.
Yep.
Wow. I get so much kudos telling people that.
So do I, DJ Boring's mum.
So that's the advertisement, Kim, because we're not going to talk about any of that.
I know.
We're going to talk about dating.
Yes.
Okay. So,
which is actually a lot more interesting.
Well, it probably is. So what we're going to talk, so a bit of backstory. So Partenaire is not my first entrepreneurial roadshow. So rodeo.
Well, it wasn't mine either.
Yeah?
But, I mean, if you remember the story, Di, I was sitting in my car in the car park, it was during COVID, and bemoaning the fact that, you know, how do you date during COVID? What do you do? And
what
and also,
was COVID at that stage? We didn't even know.
Well, no, we didn't, but we knew that we weren't allowed to go out much.
Yep.
And so I was just like stuck up. What do you do? How do you meet people? And then we were chatting about it, and suddenly I thought to myself, you know what? This is what you should be doing. Instead of introducing people in the corporate world, which is obviously your background,
yep,
why don't you introduce people on a more emotional level, couples, make matches. And then you said to me, well, I'm only going to do it if you do it with me.
I did.
And that's how it all started.
And we did.
And I honestly thought it had a most amazing potential.
So where did we go wrong? Let's do a bit of a deep dive and do a post-mortem on this.
Well, I think we had all the best intentions. We built a beautiful business plan. You're extremely good at that sort of stuff, and you pulled everything together beautifully. We brought in Tracy, who had her own set of skills as well. I think it went wrong because it was done in Australia.
So let's give some backstory to what the setup was. So it was an offline introduction agency, bespoke offline introduction agency.
Yes.
It was put together with the underpinnings and foundations of the executive search headhunting world,
yes,
which meant that we built in probity checks. Anonymity was a really big part of it because our researchers didn't want to be online. Yeah. And then we had consultative processes where they were interviewed, and we got
also had psychological testing.
We did too. We
did training for that,
and trained as that. And we developed a deep understanding of what people wanted, and then from there we went forward to make the matches.
We did so much investigating into what people wanted. We interviewed hundreds of people. And we collated all that information, and we thought, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be amazing. What it transpired was it was only women that thought it was going to be amazing.
That's exactly right.
That was the problem.
Yeah.
And we had so many educated, attractive businesswomen, great backgrounds, financially independent. They weren't looking for a man to look after them or care for them or provide for them. They wanted a partner, but a partner on an equal footing. Because also they didn't want to bring someone into their lives that might be there for a few years and then decide that they didn't want to be there anymore and take half of what they spent half their life putting together.
And that's the sweet point. So we know from our research that this is an established industry in the UK, in the US, and other parts of the world. And I mean, there's that show, the Indian matchmaking.
Indian matchmaker,
yeah. So it's an established, long
successful. It's a successful business. It's huge in the States, and it's huge in the UK.
Yeah, and in fact, you'll remember one of the big firms in the UK reached out to us because they wanted to do a collaboration to reach the Australian market, which was, incredibly exciting as a new business launching. And to your point, women loved it. So they loved the fact that there was probity into understanding whether they were going to be hooking up with somebody carrying financial or some other unspoken
criminal or anything
baggage.
Baggage.
So the probity piece was done. It took them offline because they didn't want the scenario of where, they're a leader in business or a member of the family says, I saw you online and
my friend saw you on Tinder.
Not exactly.
Think of anything worse.
Not exactly brilliant. So all of those things resonated, and they were interested in looking for a meaningful relationship. And we'll come back to what that means, because it meant a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So, but they were interested in embarking on a relationship.
Yes, and we did it also. I mean, you and Tracy both have partners. Mm-hmm. I don't.
Yep.
And so I was like a test case for this, because this was a perfect scenario for me to actually see how this situation could pan out.
Yeah.
Oh, it didn't pan anywhere in the end.
Well, it didn't, and we'll get to what the end game was ultimately. But all of the things that women valued, men did not value. It was confronting for them to think that they had to pay for it.
Yes.
It was confronting to them to think they needed help to do it.
Yes.
And what might not have been confronting, but was probably the realisation point is, so many of them didn't want a relationship. They just wanted a shag.
Yeah. Or a much younger partner.
Yeah, well, there was that,
That was the other thing. I mean, we had the most, might I say, unattractive men.
We did.
With presentation that I would have turned my nose up at personally. And they were looking for a supermodel.
We didn't find you a date, did we?
Not a single one.
Yeah.
But they wanted a supermodel. They wanted a younger.
Yeah.
Very attractive. And I'm like, dude, look at yourself in the mirror.
I know. Yeah, so unrealistic expectations.
Totally unrealistic expectations.
Yeah. So I was looking at, so I went back into some of the interviews that we did, and these were the things. This is a snapshot of what our female clients say they're looking for. A good sense in a man, because we only focused on heterosexual relationships. We thought we needed to walk before we could run. Yep, walk before we could run. So they were looking for a good sense of self, not arrogant, curious, intelligent, financially independent, sense of fun, active. Fitness was a deal breaker for quite a few of the women. Charismatic, spontaneous, open-minded, and here's the kicker, emotionally intelligent. Do they exist? That's
a lot of tick boxes.
It is a lot of tick boxes. Now, that wasn't one person's shopping list, but that was the amalgam.
Yes.
Yeah. But a lot of those things were in a lot of people's shopping lists.
I think financially independent is really important for women like myself who, I live alone, I run my businesses, I have put what I have together myself.
Yep.
And should someone come along and decide after a few years with me that they don't want to be with me anymore, I'm liable to lose whatever, half of whatever I've built.
So we're now thinking like the men used to think.
Absolutely.
Because we're established,
so is
financially
it really so hard
established in
to
our own
actually
right.
say that you want someone who is your financial equal? They don't have to have more.
No, but
just equal.
And that was an interesting point, because we had one client who defined that really well. So in simple terms of travel, she always travels at the front of the plane. Now, she's happy to pay for herself, but she also wants a partner who has the financial means to buy his seat next to her.
Business.
Well,
and this actually is for me. I travel business. I have, earned it.
Yeah.
And I don't want someone that's sitting in coach or that I have to buy their ticket. I know it sounds terrible. I'll probably get loads of hate mail for saying things like that. But
No, I get it. So if we were to go back in time and look at starting this again, I'm of the opinion that in Australia, Australian men are quite different to European men.
They are extremely
Brits
different.
And Americans. And I am of the opinion that if we relaunched Partenaire, pitched at the next generation coming through, when they're 50, because we did focus on the over 50 largely.
Yes.
Of this, that it would actually succeed, because I think we're reaching a point where men, this last point, emotionally intelligent, you see it in the boys coming through now and the younger men coming 100%. Through now. They are emotionally intelligent. They are evolved. It's not all about ego. And I actually think we were just a decade too soon to market in Australia.
I would agree with that.
Yeah?
Absolutely. And so in the meantime, what is left for us? Going out, meeting people in bars.
Yeah.
Joining things. I mean, the number of women over the years that have been joining wine clubs or whatever. Wine clubs are full of women now. Men don't go there anymore. It's full of girls. Meeting people in bars.
So when we had this, you whilst you potentially could have been a client, you were also somebody who knew a lot of single men that we approached about Partenaire. What did the men have to say about it?
Well, as long as with the interviews and that, I think they went along with it because they were friends.
Their heart wasn't in it.
But think about a couple of them. They weren't really engaged in the idea. They just sort of did it as a bit of a favour.
And these were all... So our fee was, I don't know what it was about $6,000 or thereabouts, which was cheaper than
incremental as well. It wasn't all at once.
No, and it was cheaper than what the competitive market space, and when I say competitive market space, there's not many competitors in this market.
There's literally a tiny handful. There's about 4.
Yeah. And significantly cheaper than what the international market was, which was anywhere from 20 to 50,000 US. So these were men who could afford it. It was more about, it was just a dint to their ego.
Absolutely. Well, do you remember we then went on to the ambassador idea? So we started talking to physios, hairdressers, anyone that was sort of service industry, personal trainers.
Because people open up and talk to them.
Chat to their men and say, hey, you know, I know these girls, this is what they're doing, would you be interested? Yeah. And if they got someone signed up, they'd get a fee, you know, a spotter's fee. And the answers were like, well, what do I want to do that for? Or, you've got to be kidding me. And we actually received quite negative comments.
Some of them were a bit more colourful than that.
Yeah.
They thought the whole idea sucked.
They really did.
Yeah, and I hate failing.
Oh, same.
And we were self-funded, but we had a go.
We did the smart thing, and we didn't flog the dead horse.
No, and we ultimately wound it up. So I'm sorry to say that.
And it's still very sad about that.
Yeah. And we'd spend a lot of time and energy. We'd built a beautiful looking brand and beautiful collateral. But
so there's an introduction agency for sale if anybody wants to buy the IP.
It's fully
and give it another crack.
Packaged up and it looked bloody brilliant. That's absolutely.
Please apply. Please DM me for information.
Thanks, Kim. So coming up, we're going to continue the conversation, and for the interest of putting Kimmy under the pump, we're going to get very personal.
Ooh, okay.
Welcome back to the Power of Women podcast with my special guest, Kim Hallis. So, Kim, let's get personal.
Okay. God, you scare me die when you say things like that.
Yeah, well. So let's talk about what it is like dating as a single woman over 50. So are you dating?
I recently actually went back online just to look.
Because Partner didn't work.
Because Partner didn't work. So I just went to look and just see what is actually out there. And the intrinsic problem is that men's photographs are really bad, on the whole.
We found when we did the research for Partner, there were all these shocking shots in the bathroom with the toilet seat up, and I was like, God, what were you thinking?
Or in the mirror of the wardrobe with the unmade bed behind, or holding a fish, sitting on a motorcycle, or leaning against a quality car that they probably don't own. So there's all this kind of this. There's nothing there to really get one excited. And the other thing that's important for me, if I'm looking on that, is what do you do? Where do you live and what do you do? Please don't hate me for saying this. I don't want to meet the bus driver from Ballarat. I do not want to have a date with the boilermaker from Geelong. It is not going to work for me. We will have nothing in common.
Yeah.
So I need to know that the person I'm even going to have a conversation with, even on a text basis.
Have you met the bus driver from Ballarat, by the way?
No, I was a hard pass on that. I know that people will hate me for this, but it's an absolute reality.
No, you've got to move with your own crowd.
And because I run a business, I don't have time to just go on numerous dates to, find out what someone's like. I don't have the time. This is the other thing on online dating. If you don't get back to them within 24 hours, you get some quite snarly messages. Well, obviously you're too busy to respond and things like that. They're quite snarly.
Which suggests that maybe they don't have terribly busy lives.
Dude, I'm busy.
Yeah.
That doesn't go down a treat.
So I'm guessing as a woman who runs a growing and expanding business, you've got a workforce, you've got B2B and B2C clients and B2B and B2C arms of your business. So you are damned busy.
Damned busy.
Dating and your personal life, your relationships probably get flicked to the back burner every time you get busy, which seems to be all the time.
Yes, it does. It does get a flick.
Yeah.
So, like with everything else in your life where you build in efficiency in order to get as much done as possible, like your hairdresser or your nails or, all the things, all the maintenance stuff.
Can't schedule it quite like that.
No, but you do need to be able to actually try and get as much bang for your buck, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
And the time that you put into it.
Yeah.
So for me, I end up it slides off the scale. I go out with friends. I have a great time. I have fun. But actually getting down to the nitty-gritty job of meeting someone. And
are you concerned about being online? Does being online...
I don't like it.
Yeah? Does it ever intersect with
No.
business? Does it ever...
once or twice there's been kind of an odd comment.
Yeah?
I don't really like it. I actually use a false name on it.
Okay, there you go.
Just to slightly confuse people.
Because your name's associated with the brand name of the business. So therein why we crafted Partner in the first instance. And
so I don't enjoy it. I don't do it very much. I usually get deleted from people's...
So tell us about some of the war stories, because there must be some war stories.
Well, I suppose the war stories, I mean, they're the same as every girl has. You turn up for a date and obviously his photographs are from 10 years ago or before. And then, instead of this rather kind of lithe, nice-looking guy with some hair, you've got a fat, bald guy. There's nothing wrong with fat, bald guys, and there's some very funny and lovely ones, but it's just not what you're expecting.
Yeah.
And then there's the person that talks about themselves the whole time. To be honest, I haven't done enough of it.
But it obviously takes a lot of time.
Yeah. I went for a coffee with someone the other day, and it was pleasant. But after 15 minutes, I was thinking...
You're not going to date somebody who's pleasant.
I need to go. But I couldn't, because I felt rude. So I stayed for an hour and a half.
Because then you feel sorry for them, because they're only pleasant.
Because they're pleasant.
Yeah. And you're dealing with other people's emotions.
And you have to be careful about that. That's a human responsibility.
So have you got an idea of how you approach this? I mean, we know we've got we say about time, we've got a friend of ours who did become single unexpectedly, and they had sold their business. And I think that individual put an enormous amount of time and energy into the online dating scene and has been unbelievably successful.
Yep.
And has met a fabulous man who we totally totally approve of.
Yep.
So it can be done, but
it's almost a full-time job though,
It is. So
it's a full-time job. You've got to be onto it every day, several times a day.
Yeah.
You've got to go through the walks in the park, the coffee meetings, the wines. You have to do that. And if you are retired, good luck. You've got that space to do it.
God.
I know. So, what's the answer?
What is the answer?
Trawling around the bars, trying to meet hot men.
And then... I
met someone really lovely the other night at a bar, just quite by coincidence. She knows your husband, funnily enough.
You can see my
Small
husband.
world in Melbourne.
There you go. Well, I mean, as you know, I met my husband
at a wedding.
At a wedding.
Yeah.
So he'd already been vetted because he was on the guest list. So that kind of helped. But I can understand it is difficult to.
And look, here's the other thing, Di. As you get older, you're not as hot as you were, right? You've got
I don't
the
know
wrinkles.
about that. Look at us.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
I know.
Do you actually believe that?
I'm really happy when I walk out in the morning when I've done my makeup and done my hair.
And sorry,
I've dressed.
Kim just had her hands on her breasts. I'm not quite sure what that was about.
I don't know why I did that.
Yeah, I don't know why
I
you
think
did
it was
that.
more from the heart than the breast.
Is that what it was?
Look, I feel great, but when I take my clothes off, I'm not happy with my boobs. I've got wrinkles on my arms. Tummy's not as good as it was, and I don't feel as attractive in my body as I used to feel years ago when I was doing triathlons.
But to be fair, you might for home entertainment, but you're not going to be partnering with a 24-year-old who's at his prime either. So
well, I know, but
does
because
it
men are so
matter?
judgy. They're so judgmental.
But you're judgy. You
I
didn't
know.
like the bald man, and
No,
so
true.
I mean we're judgy
So
on
is this
both
our problem?
sides. Well, is it?
Here's the other thing. When people grow up, they get old together. They knew each other as young and beautiful, or younger and beautiful.
And more beautiful.
And so they sort of slide into their old age together, still loving and seeing the young person that they fell in love with. But when you're already in your 50s, 60s, you're starting from scratch. And I just think it's harder.
Yeah, you're not starting from the same playing field.
You're not, no.
Yeah.
So, yes, a date's great. I mean, look, if you want to get really down to the nitty-gritty, the first thing I want to do in the morning is when I get out of bed is rush off to the loo, right? Okay. So how do you manage that with a new date? When you slept with them for the first time, you wake up in the morning and
all those things.
Sorry, I'm going to rush off to the toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it tends to hold you back a little bit. As to what you do, so maybe just go to their place, have a shag and go home, because then at least you're in your own bed, in your own bathroom in the morning.
Oh God, the trials and tribulations
So
of
there
dating.
are trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
Unless you're a free spirit and you don't mind and you just happy to
Just go with it.
Go with it. But
Yeah.
I'm not that girl.
Not anymore.
Unfortunately. No. I mean, there was a time when I used to love getting my kit off because I was really proud of my body.
Yeah.
Take my top off at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, but not as
Especially when
proud of
playing
it today.
tennis. I used to always lift my top up to distract my opponent and show my boobs because,
Bloody hell, the things
What's
I
a
learn,
treat?
the things I learn about people I know in a podcast. God forbid. There you go. Okay, so enough about dating, Kim. Let's get back to business.
Okay.
Let's talk property and interior. What are the trends for 2024?
Well, we've had a lot of white. We've had a lot of white sofas, a lot of white boucle. We've had a lot of white walls and neutral colours. But if you look around, you'll see that people are painting their walls again. Not a feature wall like they did before, but colour, all in rooms.
So it's Porter's paints and those sorts
Porter's
of things
paints,
back?
yes,
Yeah?
absolutely. A slightly richer, deeper, emerald, burgundies, tans, blacks, greys. There's a lot of that coming through. A more cosy, enveloping, warm hug type of decorating, rather than that very clean, clinical lines, lots of white, one cushion, minimalism. I mean, people are always going to love that. There's always those that love that minimal look.
Yeah, because it's dateless.
It is dateless.
Yeah.
But I think just coming through as a trend, there's a lot more. More is more again.
And what about fabrics? I think you told me boucle is no longer in.
Oh, well, look, it is, but
It's been done.
it's really been done to death.
And what replaces it?
Look, there are only certain fabrics, but linens and velvets will never, ever date. Whereas boucle it's come down the line from Milan to the cheapest footstool that you can buy
it's like
today.
Fashion trends.
It's
it
like a
comes
fashion
from
trend.
a premium brand, and then it gets democratized to everybody at a price point.
Wonderful bit in The Devil Wears Prada where she talks about the cobalt blue jumper. I love that bit.
Yeah.
And then you fished it out of some bargain basement bin.
Yeah. So that's what happens.
And that's what happens. But when you have good velvets and good linens, and lovely textured, I mean, we've just brought in this range of sofas with beautiful textured velvets, not just flat. So I think that texture and that sort of thing is really going to be big for the next few years.
Beautiful. Fantastic. So, Kim, I've got 3 questions that I put to all of my guests on Power of
Okay.
Women. What's a phrase that defines you?
Oh my God, I honestly don't know. Probably talks too much. Never stop stalking. Never stop stalking with a drink in her hand. That's my phrase.
What's something you haven't had a chance to put on your bio yet?
Retirement. Retiree.
I don't think you're ever going to do that.
No, I don't think so either.
So if there is a woman out there, someone out there feeling unseen, unheard, underestimated, undervalued, what would be the pearl of wisdom you would have for them?
Okay. There's usually a reason why they feel that way. There's one of two ways. Either they're made to feel that way by a partner or a person who gaslights, undermines, a narcissist, that kind of thing. My pearl of wisdom is get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And reinvent yourself. The other one is women that don't feel that they look good enough anymore. And there's a very simple solution to that. You start indulging in a lot more self-maintenance. You look after yourself. You go and get a facial. You go and get your hair coloured. You know, you go to the gym a few times a week.
Yeah.
You actually put some energy into
invest in
who
yourself.
you are when you walk out that front door. And so if you are feeling unseen and unheard,
do something about it.
You have to do something about it. I know it sounds harsh, but otherwise you will remain unseen and unheard. And that for those who feel that way because of another person making them feel that way, that's much harder. But there's so much online now about information and help that you can get and other people that are in the same position and how they got out of it. And that's where you start, is talking to people that have been in that same awful position.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice.
Thank you, Kim.
My absolute pleasure.
So thank you for listening to the Power of Women podcast, and a special thank you to you, Kim Hallis, for joining me as my guest today, and thank you to Chocolate Studios for this fantastic space. If Power of Women resonates, please follow and share this or other episodes with a friend, family member, or colleague. You can also follow and like us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Further, you could also jump on to the Power of Women website, which is powerofwomen.com.au, and connect with me directly. And you can suggest perhaps a topic or a guest that you would like to hear from.